again to another Agricolor Reaction. Today we will be watching the Speed of Constant Thrust Space Travel. And it's from the overview effect, so it's another good video. We watched stuff about, habitats, the size of habitats or something like that, some time ago, so let's just jump in and see.
Did you realize that Star Trek and The Expanse take place in the same time period? About 300 years in the future.
Actually, I didn't realize that.
Very different futures. I love Star Trek because it takes place in the future that I want to live in, with warp drives and emotionally intelligent people. But I love The Expanse because it's a realistic version of how our future might play out, with real-life physics-based space travel and widespread suffering. So I wanted to visualize how that kind of space travel would work, how fast we could travel in the solar system under constant thrust, but also push it further and see if the Epstein drive can handle interstellar travel. The thing you need to understand about how space travel works in 2350 is that there was one major scientific development that allowed humanity to colonize the solar system: efficiency. Current rocket engines are way less efficient than the fusion drives in The Expanse, so they cannot burn continuously. They burn so that they just go far enough out of the atmosphere so that there is no air drag, burn once again very briefly to circularize the orbit, and then with the help of gravity, they essentially fall forever. Once in orbit, we can burn once again to extend the size of our orbit and then coast to reach other planets. This is called a Hohmann transfer, and it is the most efficient way of getting somewhere right now. It takes about 9 months of coasting to get to Mars. And that's just the closest planet. Travel times to the outer planets usually take years because we need to use gravity assists because of that lack of efficiency. Currently, the Europa Clipper is on its way to Jupiter, but won't arrive for another 5 years. But the ships in The Expanse use the fictional Epstein fusion drive, which has insane fuel efficiency and an untimely name. That level of efficiency allows the ships to burn continuously.
Oh, I didn't even put them together. Whoa! Yeah, well, it was in the book. The books were released way before the whole Epstein. Whoa! I didn't even think about it.
Sometimes months. It allows them to travel in a way that we can only dream of right now: a straight line. Here's how it works: you calculate where the planet is going to be, point your ship, and burn, and keep burning. Gravity has a nearly insignificant effect at these velocities, hence the straight line. But if you burn the whole way, your insane speed would mean you'd fly right past your target. You can't stop on a dime. And even if you could, you can't.
True. He did kinda smash there, isn't it, this guy? And yep. Yeah, I actually didn't even put together. Oh yeah, it's just a surname. Excuse me. And it's not uncommon surname as well. So yeah, and like I said, the books came out years ago. The last one came out, I think, even before the last season was released, and that was about 5 years ago. That Epstein drive came out way before the whole Epstein scandal. But well, that's what happens, isn't it? Yeah. You can't really predict the future, even if you're a writer. So, yep. And we're almost done here. So we'll be back to the video. And here you go. Oh, no, wait! I almost forgot again about this.
So what you want to do, Haas, is burn towards the destination for half the trip, then flip and slow down the other half. This is the fastest way to travel somewhere with the known laws of physics. In the series, this is sometimes referred to as a turn and burn or a flip and burn, but in science it's called a brachistochrone trajectory. So how fast is it? Well, before we get to that, a word from the sponsor of this video. In The Expanse, the Martian Navy is known for making the best warships in the future, but in the past, the Yamato was the largest and most powerful warship in World War II, and you can command one in World of Warships.
Really?
It's the perfect game to take your mind off things. It's a game that strikes a balance of action and strategy with multiple ship classes with various play styles for each. It was really fun trying to figure out how to manage the slow turrets on the big battleship classes. You really have to be prepared for which side they're going to come at you and play very strategically. My favorite way to play. But you could also go in light and quick with a cruiser, and now they have a new class, submarines. I barely skimmed the surface before this video came out. There's 40 maps with dynamic weather, and the graphics have been recently upgraded to AAA level with new water effects and
that looks cool
for an even more immersive environment. It takes place in a 12v12 arena, and you can
was there a scorpion there on it?
In a division with your friends.
Weird.
It's free to play on PC, and it's also available on consoles. Use the link in the description of this video with the code IMPACTFORCE.
Oh, it's available for consoles. It took me a while to hear that.
Players and all of the benefits below. Okay, so how fast can we travel through the solar system using constant acceleration? The limiting factor is the humans inside. You know how I said you can't stop on a dime? Well, you can't accelerate too fast either, or the squishy humans inside will go pop.
True.
So in practice, acceleration in the expanse is usually between 1/3 of a g and 1 g. For this video, we're just going to look at travel times based on 1/3 of a g of acceleration. Oh my god, get on with it! The position of the planets in their orbits changes the duration of the trip, and therefore there is a minimum and a maximum time in which it would take to travel to each planet. The minimum time for a trip from Earth to Mars at 0.3 g would be 3 days, and the maximum would be as long as 8 days. Remember, I said it currently takes 9 months. Also, I want to point out that the maximum times are all when the planets are on the opposite sides of the sun, so that line travels through the sun, but the sun is way, way scaled up in this animation, and it wouldn't be a problem to just adjust your trajectory slightly to go around it. But what about the outer planets? To get to the outer planets, we'll have to pass through the asteroid belt on the way. The odds, by the way, of successfully navigating the asteroid belt are extremely high. In fact, the odds of actually hitting anything have been calculated by NASA at 1 in a billion. Ceres, the largest asteroid/dwarf planet, is here in this orbit, and a trip from Earth would take from 6 days to 10 days. Tycho Station is also somewhere in the belt, but it has its own engines and can be anywhere.
True.
And also you can see the orbit of Eros passing very close to Mars in a highly eccentric and inclined orbit. The trip from Jupiter to Earth would take from 10 days to 13 days. The outer planets are so far out that they have the biggest difference in their min and max travel times. When Jupiter and Saturn are nearest, the trip is about 10 days. But when they're on opposite sides, it's up to 20 days. But from the inner solar system, the difference in orbit position doesn't make that much of a difference because they're so far out. Earth's minimum travel time to Saturn is 14 days, and its max is 16.5. And that's not too much different than Mars, 13.5 minimum to 17 days maximum. Uranus and Neptune aren't of much interest in the expanse, nor in real life, really. They're the Rodney Dangerfield of planets. They get no respect. They have only ever been visited once by the spacecraft Voyager 2 in 1986. But the longest possible planetary trip in the solar system would be when Uranus is positioned on one side of the system and Neptune is on the other, which would take just over a month, 36 days. Up until this point, I've just been telling you the time it takes to get from A to B at a certain level of acceleration. But velocity is arguably a more important measure. In space, we measure how far we can go by how much we can change our velocity, otherwise known as delta V, the amount of change in velocity, aka speed. And delta V is a good measure because we don't know the exact specs of how the Epstein drive works or its efficiency, but if we know how far and how fast a ship goes, we can work backwards from delta V. When the fuel tanks ran out on Epstein's yacht, the very first Epstein drive, his velocity was about 15,000 kilometers per second. So his ship had a delta V of 15,000 kilometers per second. It was how fast he could go with one tank of fuel. And let's put 15,000 kilometers per second in context. To reach escape velocity from Earth, rockets need about 13 kilometers per second of delta V. The Dawn mission had the highest onboard delta V of any mission ever at 11 kilometers per second, thanks to its highly efficient ion drive, with the booster that makes a total delta V of about 24 kps. The fastest man-made object ever is the Parker Solar Probe, but after launch only had on board 0.3 kps of delta V. It got its velocity of 190 kilometers per second from several gravity assists, and it's expected to reach over 200 on its next orbit around the Sun. But the lowest estimate on delta V for an Expanse ship, the legitimate salvage Rocinante, is about 4,000 kilometers per second. And we know Epstein's yacht can reach at least 50,000 kps. If you look at the distances in the solar system and use the same math we use to estimate time, we can see that the amount of delta V needed to go from Neptune to Uranus, one of the longest trips in the solar system, as I mentioned, uses about 10,000 kilometers per second of delta V. And I apologize if this graphic is hard to follow, but it's showing that as you accelerate from 0, you get to the middle ground and then you start decelerating. So delta V is exactly double your maximum velocity, because as you start slowing down, you're still spending delta V to slow down, but you're not getting any faster. I hope that makes sense. You might have to replay this video a couple times. Which puts all of the planets well within reach, and is how the people in the Expanse's future were able to colonize and economically exploit the resources of the solar system.
That is really a good way of kind of explaining it, because yeah, like burn and all that. What? How long is this at? So basically it's hard to explain it why I do like expand. I think the fact that it's so scientifically realistic as well, you kind of give it to it. That basically it's not something that it's I can start to warp and we are in it. And there's no explanation how that works and stuff. This one kind of does, and it kind of like adheres to the actual physical rules of the universe, so it's kind of cool, like thinking that, oh, we could actually do that in the future. I'm not saying I will live to it to see it, but you know, it's possible. So that's cool. And it's really good because Expanse have everything in it. Everything. It's really entertaining. So I haven't watched it in a few months, so I think I'll be back to it soon. It's my like a good feel show. Like I already watched it, but every time I'm watching it, I'm noticing new things in it. So like I haven't seen it before. So it's kind of interesting to do it too, obviously. And yeah, let's just go back to the video.
In the detail of all of the travel times, this was just a snippet, and the delta V in the solar system. I built a calculator on my new website, and there will be a link in the description.
Cool.
But with the ability to have ships with that level of insane delta V, would it be possible to travel to other stars in a human lifetime? In Expanse canon, we know it's possible because the Nauvoo was being built to go to Tau Ceti as a generation ship, and it's stated to take about 100 years. So, if we do the Brachistochrone math on that, the Nauvoo wouldn't accelerate the entire trip. If it would be fine. They'd get there in no time. It would accelerate for about 100 days, up to a speed of about
Project Hail Mary mode as well? Cool.
36,000 kilometers per second, and then coast for nearly the whole 100 years and decelerate at the end for another 100 days, using a total delta V of 72,000 kilometers per second. If you've got 72,000 kilometers per second of delta V, couldn't you get to other places sooner? Yeah, you can. With 72,000 kilometers per second of delta V, going to Alpha Centauri would only take 36 years and 9 months. My first reaction to that was like, silly Mormons. But, you know, I was reflecting on it, and I think that it's one of the good examples of some of the literary themes in The Expanse, the power of a religion. They built this huge generation ship mega project and convinced people to give up their lives on a one-way mission when they didn't have to. They could have gone to Alpha Centauri in a lifetime. And my reading of it is that it's a deep commentary on the power of religion, its ability to organize people, to give them purpose, but it's irrational and can sometimes be deadly. But The Expanse not only explored that theme, they did that and used science to illustrate the point. Good on ya! And as I mentioned, both of these calculators are on my website. I'll post a link in the description. If anyone sees any problems or any problems with the math, the source code is linked underneath the calculator, and let me know. I look forward to feedback. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, I think we watched the spin gravity compared. So that was cool. This is very well. He's explaining everything. I'm not very good with science, so he's explaining everything really well. Like I understand while I'm watching it, and then 5 minutes later, I don't understand. I mean, I still kind of understand, but I wouldn't be able to explain it to someone else, so I would just send them to this video, you know? And like, as always, Expanse, watch it. If you haven't seen it yet, seriously, watch it. Watch first season and see how you feel about it. There's only 5 of them, or 6 of them. Yeah, so, yeah. The books are even... I think, actually, the books and the show, it's kind of like the same. It's very good. So, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!